Commissioner Morrell, you're recognized on item number 4. First
Thank
and
you,
second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we've looked at this for 2 months, nearly, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sure most all of you, I hope all of you know what this is all about and what it's asking for, which is just to allow the school department to use money that's already in their budget to construct a sewer line and sewer pump station for the new Sullivan East Middle School. On that, I don't have to tell you, this is a very important issue for the east zone area of our county. I think that probably some people kind of looked at maybe the city-county sewer agreement that was back in '96 when it came back in, when they first started with it. I personally don't think that the county at this time is going to be spending millions of dollars on a trunk line. And I don't, because we're building 2 new schools as we speak right now, I don't think the city of Bristol is interested in building any new collector lines and spending millions of dollars, because they're also in the process of building a new middle school and rightly so. I think we've looked at this from every angle. I don't know of any way else to do this, but this is something that we have to have for the school. If this is postponed or anything like that, we lose the bid agreement after tomorrow or after today. Most likely, when this is rebid out, it could be $300,000–400,000 more. It's just going to cost us more money. It's going to cost the taxpayers more money. And so I hope everyone understands how important this issue is, and it's something that we really need. And I'm asking for a positive vote on this, please.
Mr. Morrell renews his motion for adoption, seconded by Commissioner Vance. Commissioner Crawford, you're recognized for discussion.
I've yet to be satisfied as to whether or not this line is going to be large enough to handle the capacity that it needs to for the school, as well as maybe other growth in that area. I just have not had that question answered satisfactorily.
Okay, Mr. Crawford, from what I understand, the architects are the one that come up with this amount. It would be nice if Sullivan County or the school system could put a 10-inch line, a mile long, all the way to Weaver School there, the old Weaver School site. The folks, they just can't afford to do it, and I don't think we can either. And so the 4-inch line is going to be sufficient to do what it's supposed to do, and that's serve the middle school, and hopefully later on it will be able to service the high school there on that. I'm no architect, I don't know, and I think it can allow for some growth on the line, Mr. Crawford, but it's not going to be like a 10-inch line would be or anything like that for sure.
Well, we're saying now a little over $1 million to do a 4-inch line.
Mm-hmm.
If we go to a 6-inch line, what is the approximate cost of that?
I don't know, Mr. Crawford. I mean,
is it that much more that, if the ground's open and you're putting the line in, it seems like then would be the time to put a larger line in.
Yeah, I believe the school department would love to help do that, but I think the funding is just not there.
I understand the urgency of this and everything. I'd hate to vote for it and then come back 2 years and, this commission's got egg on their face for doing something that there was a question unanswered to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's my only reluctance with it, and I hate for it not to be passed with the urgency of what needs to be done for the benefit of the school, but I just haven't had that question answered satisfactorily to me.
I really can't answer that. I'm not an architect or anything like that, of course. And, I don't know. And I doubt if Ms. Rafalowski could answer that. Probably, but she may. I don't know.
While Ms. Rafalowski makes her way to the podium, I'll You got your engineer hat on, like you have, but I rely on the witness of experts, and I'm sure you did too.
Good evening. Good evening, and I'll talk loudly. And this line has been approved by engineers who have designed the line from Mattern and Craig, as well as engineers in the city of Bristol have accepted it. Again, I'm not an architect or an engineer. We've gone on the basis of what was designed for the school. We've been assured that it will handle the middle school and the high school and the potential growth of possibly 50 additional residencies that would come in the form of maybe a subdivision or some type of residential development in that area. But we have been assured by not only Mattern and Craig engineers that designed the line, as well as those in Bristol who have accepted that design, that is sufficient, more than sufficient is what we've been told.
Evelyn, do you have any idea, like I say, to go to another, from a 4 to 6 inch line, like I say, if the trench is open, what would be the additional cost?
I do not, Commissioner Crawford, and I apologize for that. I know that we bid in September, or actually the bid went out in August, what was designed by the engineers and what had been accepted, and that was what was bid. So I can't tell you what the increase in cost would be. I know that we do have a bid that we felt confident with and felt like we had gotten a good bid. That bid will go away for us tomorrow. And we know that with the changes that have come in the past 3-4 months as far as tariffs and things of that nature, that if this project is bid again, we don't feel comfortable that the bid will come in where we are now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Commissioner Dwight King, you're recognized, Dwight.
Thank you. Back when the original school plans were drawn, sent to the state, and they came back, there was a on-site septic system for that school, and they rejected it. Said that you needed to go to the nearest utility and to get sewer. Is that correct?
It was rejected. The wastewater treatment plant was rejected, yes.
So you've had since what, a year now, since those plans were sent to Nashville to do this, and then all of a sudden, you know, tomorrow's the day that we have to do something? There again, it's the same scenario that we hear every time. It's a hurry up and let's get this thing done. We've got to have it done tomorrow. That bid was a bid. You hadn't signed any contract. And I'm sure that Joe Thomas and Thomas Construction Company would be glad to do that. But if it's not the right thing and the right thing to do, then so be it. They're not holding anything over our heads to do the sewer line. I know that we're going to have a sewer line, but we haven't reached out and looked at all the options that we've got to get to this. And I agree with Commissioner Crawford. The people that I've talked to, which are engineers and architects, say in an ideal situation, that line will work. In an ideal situation. But if you have one little hiccup, and that 4-inch line is not able to carry the capacity, and all that sewage dumps back into the well and fills up, then all that's going to dump, and they'll go straight down to South Holston River. So, my thinking is, you know, we're talking about regionalism and everybody getting together and having all this stuff and working together. Has anybody actually sat down with Bristol and say, what if we put an 8-inch line? What if we do a connector from, say, the breaking point down and take care of East High School? East High School's got problems with their sewer, and everybody knows that. That's nothing that we can hide. They've got problems. When you got stink in the high school, we've got problems. And then we've had problems. And how old is the sewer plant up there? Is there ever since the school was built? 51 years. And, you know, why don't we go together and sit down with Bristol, sit down and see if we can come up with a compromise, see if we can come up with something that would help Sullivan County, would help Bristol, would help all the taxpayers in that area up there, and maybe we'd have a little growth up there. Since the school was built, and this is all I've heard since all this school was going to be built up there, oh, there's going to be all kinds of subdivisions, there's going to be all kinds of restaurants and all kinds of stuff moved in around this school. If you don't have an adequate sewer, there's not going to be anything, just like it has been for 51 years. So let's get together, go to Bristol, sit down with Bristol, and have a work session. And in this agreement right here, it says that the mayor is the one that goes and meets with those people. That's what this says, and I don't think this is out of text yet. It hasn't run out, and we've still got a sewer agreement. And there again, we put $22 million out here in trunk lines, and all we're asking is a little bit of help from one of our cities. And if we don't want to do this, let's just have an agreement with Bristol and Sullivan County to do this. And then, because it won't be too long down the road, we'll be doing the same thing with Kingsport on the high school. We're going to have to hook sewer to that. And, you know, I've had a little experience with this. We just did our ag center. And we didn't have to run any lines. They brought it to us. But we negotiated with them. And when they saw that there was something out there that's going to benefit all of us. And then I think this school is going to benefit our east end of the county. And if we can't serve our taxpayers and give them something that they can benefit from, then I think we're failing our taxpayers. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Broughton, you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Morrell, I appreciate you carrying this because I know it means a lot to you. But just a couple things about it, what Mr. King said, we have an agreement in place. That agreement's still good for another 3 years, or 2 years, 2 or 3 years, whatever it is, right? And regardless, it's still an active agreement. And I feel like as a body, we can't just ignore an active agreement. We either have to go by it or terminate it and then choose an alternate direction. What bothered me a minute ago, you said if we don't approve this, it might be a $300,000 or $400,000 increase in the next bid. Well, that brings me back to the former commission approving the $4.8 million for the athletic fields because they had to have it right then. And now I'm finding out that the middle school's $4.1 million over budget. And you take the $700,000 this is, miraculously, that's $4.8 million. I can count, and the numbers are confusing to me because I don't understand how we had to have $4.8 million for athletic fields, but we're $4.8 million over this middle school project. The city of Bristol, the city of Kingsport, this agreement pertains to both of them. As Mr. King said, we're going to be going down this road again before long. And if we don't settle this, we'll just be hashing and rehashing. We need to figure out what we're going to do, either go by the agreement, not go by the agreement. But I just don't feel like ignoring the agreement is a viable option.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Commissioner Akron.
Didn't want to respond to Paul.
I'm sorry?
Randy wanted to
Chris
respond.
Morrell's want to respond.
Okay.
Todd, I hear what you're saying.
I don't think that anybody here, I mean, I'll be not an architect, I'm sure we're probably talking about, some high-end money, okay? I just don't know if we're willing to put that money up, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Akron, you're recognized. Sorry about overlooking you, Randy.
Thank you very much. Again, I spoke at the work session since Commissioner Vance wasn't here, I had to take over the mantle of sewer expert. I understand what Commissioner Crawford's saying, and so, we reached out to people who I trust, and like Mr. Ralph McCaskey said, the plans are certified by an engineer, and so they're held liable if there's any issues. and I won't say the names since they're not here, but the people in Bristol said the 4-inch line is more than adequate, because it's a pressured line. It's not a gravity-fed line. It'll feed the middle school, the high school, and over 150 residences if they ever do come to fruition, which that could or could not happen. It is frustrating. I mean, we've been talking about this for 3 months, and so, and we still have no resolution to the agreement or anything else. At some point, we have to make a decision to move on. And so, you know, from a standpoint of, is the line fine? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, everyone seems perfectly fine for that size line and everything. So.
Thank you. Randy,
I'll go ahead, start us.
Mr. Clever, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. On the agreement, if you'll read in here where it states under a collector line, it says a pipeline usually 8 inches or smaller in diameter or a forced main, and associated lift stations, which receives wastewater from individual residences, businesses, and other industries. Bilateral sewers conveys that wastewater from a service area to a trunk line. Number one, the county qualifies under 2 categories. It is a forced main line, and it is going to be 8 inches or smaller. And it plainly states that in their agreement here. There's 2 ways that you can do this. When you were talking about, Mr. Crawford, the 8-inch, the 4-inch line not being big enough, the cost factor that we can do, if we do run a bigger line, say a 6 or 8 inch line, we can cut down on the size of the pumps that we have to pump that amount of fluids through there. Because you're cutting down on your friction loss when you put a bigger pipe in. So therefore, your pumps are going to be able to do an easier and better job, which will be better for the pumps anyway. And the word that I've got with this, our county attorney sat here at our work session last Thursday night and informed all of us that this sewer agreement is intact. And for the future of that area and for the future of this commission to agree on this, I think that our county mayor and our county attorney should sit down with Bristol and negotiate this. We could get Bristol, if they go along with us, to maybe run the pipe for us and we provide the pump stations. If we go with a bigger size pipe, you're already going to have the ditch open. It's not going to cost that much more money to put a bigger pipe in that ditch. It's simple. And therefore, we can cut corners on the size of the pumps. And what concerns me about this is I read through the plans and the size container that we've got on site for this sewage to go into. To save money with the high school situation, we could put a bigger container in and gravity flow the sewage from east down to this container and then pump it back up. Therefore, it avoids another pump station at East High School, which will save us some money. And we've talked about this several times for the future of that area. That's what we need. And with the county attorney giving us that information last Thursday night, and with the information that's in this agreement, I think we should just either vote it down or leave it up to our mayor and the county attorney to move forward for us. There is a lot of potential in that area, and you're looking at 15,000 feet of 4-inch line. That's 2.8 or 2.9 miles any way you look at it. And I guess the concern I've got, the contractor, I don't think we've got any toilets that's ready to flush on that site. There's porta-johns, and I think the sewer's going to be the last thing that we need anyway. And this time of year, how you going to dig a ditch and run a line anyway? So I feel like let's drop back and negotiate on this and see what we can get worked out with Bristol. It's going to be a win situation for them. It's going to be a win situation for Sullivan County. And let's move on.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Commissioner Hutton, you're recognized.
I've been thinking about this and reading through this agreement for a while. I can tell you from the conversations I've had with folks in Bristol, they don't read it the same as Mr. Street. They would disagree with certain aspects of this 96 agreement, not say that it's not in fact, but there are certain parts of it, particularly the idea that there's a group of people that are supposed to meet yearly to talk about a plan, that hasn't been going on. I mean, so if we're gonna live by it, then we need to live by it, but we haven't been living by it. There's other aspects of it as well that are, that raise some questions in terms of the definitions and even where things are defined as residence, business, and industries. It doesn't mention schools, it does when it talks about government buildings. So the people in Bristol, the leadership of Bristol is not, they might be interested in having a conversation about some things, but from what I understand so far, the idea of Bristol building, putting down the pipeline from the middle school to Weavers is not something that they're considering. And I understand that it falls on us as a county that if we put this pipeline in, if we ship this money and we put it in, the responsibility rests on the county then to maintain it until such a time that somebody else, like if East High School ties onto it, then it becomes the responsibility of Bristol at that point. In some ways, this line sounds almost like a collector line, but rather than, I mean, a lateral sewer rather than a collector line, just by definition. I mean, if you look at the definitions in section 2, it sounds more like a lateral line than a collector line because it says one entity on it. And I mean, there's all kinds of questions that come along with this agreement. And I think that raises some issues that we as a body need to wrestle with. If it's going to be something we're going to live with, then we should be living by it. But I don't think it's been something that's been used effectively in the last few years. It was when it was originally drafted, but I don't know that it's seen the light of day much. At the same time, I think our responsibility to the community is we definitely want to take care of students, kids, and teachers, and in many respects, the whole question of this school being built, it's up. And I think we have an obligation as a body to help expedite what's happening. At the same time, I would level some frustration. I mean, coming into this Board of Commissioners, there was all this issue about the high school not having a road, and the first thing we have to deal with is a pipeline. And it's coming to us at the 11th hour with a lot of push. And that means to me that I'm wondering who's behind the plan, who is orchestrating the plan. I mean, I grew up in a family of general contractors. So in terms of construction, that's the family that I grew up in. I'm doing something else because I don't have any ability to build anything. Anything I built looked terrible, so they told me to go to school and learn, do books. So, but I have at least an understanding that when you have these kinds of projects, that you look down the road and you put things together, and there's things that come along, and it just feels like there's this push. And I think it would be great to, at least when we do things in the future, that there's a long-range plan in place that says, hey, these are the contingencies that can come along, rather than all of a sudden the county commission having to make a decision about shifting money so that we can build a sewer line that it should have been taken care of quite some time ago. So, but on the other side of it, I think about all these questions being raised about schools, and I want to see kids in that school next year, and I want to see educators being able to get the job done and flourishing be going on, and so that our school system isn't spending time constantly frustrated by trying to navigate what it means to spend a little money or build what they need to build. I mean, I'm ready to see this thing moving on, but at the same time, I want to express a frustration that this hasn't been thought out and planned out effectively. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Vance, you're recognized.
Well, I agree with Mr. Crawford and Mr. Hudson the same way. I don't like being here and dealing with this. I feel like we have been left out of the dark on some things, and as things come to us as the commission to try to address. But we have to remove those feelings, and we have to look at the resolution. The resolution is clearly asking the school board is asking for permission to use funds that they have to extend a sewer line to accommodate the middle school. The issue with the sewer agreement, this county commission has not looked at that in several years. We've not looked at even putting a trunk line, 10-inch trunk line down the Weaver Pike. That's something maybe we should have been looking at, trying to service that area with sewers. You talk about going to a 6-inch line or an 8-inch, 10-inch line to make it actually a trunk line. The question in my mind, why would the school department use their own funds to put a trunk line to accommodate a community? That's the government's function. That's not the school department's function. School department function is to build this school. Do I agree with all the communications or the lack of communications involving this? I don't. I have talked to the developers of this middle school. They said they're going to be ready in April, May to actually tie on as they finish the inside of the school. Is it going to cost the county more money to delay this, to have to rebid it out? Could be. Is it going to delay the construction of this school? It could be. There's a lot of things I don't like about this resolution. There's a lot of things I don't like that's happened and took place, and I agree with Mr. Hutton. Most of the time when the development occurs and you buy a piece of property, the first thing you want to do is, first of all, it's going to be suitable, and you're going to determine the utilities, accessibility of utilities. You're going to look at the cost of developing the land, and a lot of things that's not been communicated back to this county commission. I'm one of the commissioners that supported this school bond. And I hoped, and I've had this conversation, I had hoped that everything had been positive on this whole project. And I had hoped that there would have been a project manager that would see through all these different categories of issues that had the history and the knowledge on how to develop a facility. We've not had that. The education does a great job in educating their kids. They're not going to build a house for me, I can tell you that. I'm not going to even build a house for myself because I don't know enough about it, okay? So I want us to keep down to the principle of this resolution. The principle of this resolution is spending $1,025,000 to put a 4-inch line, 2 pump stations to serve this middle school. That's the basis of it, guys. That's it. Is it the ideal situation? Absolutely not. Would we be better off putting a 10-inch line down there? The question goes back to who's going to pay for it and how much is it going to cost. And in my opinion, and I talked to some people, you're probably talking in the neighborhood about $4 or $5 million to put a 10-inch line. So the question I impose to each one of you all, we want to argue over about the sewer agreement. A trunk line is 10 inches or better. Anything less than 10 inches is considered a collection line. And so the collection line is a responsibility of the cities, and the county is responsibility for the trunk line, which is 10 inch. So in all reality of the sewer agreement, to service that whole area, we as a physical body of commissioners should be funding the 10-inch line and then letting the city of Bristol take it over. Bristol said they're not going to put a 4-inch trunk line down through there. And they're going to argue the fact they're not going to pay for it. It'll end up in court, and the county and the city will go to court with each other over it, and we're still going to be sitting here with the schools not going to develop. So I want us to keep the principle. This resolution is giving the school department permission to spend their money. Originally in their bond proceeds was $750,000 for a self-contained system. They're spending $275,000 more than what they had in the budget to put this sewer line, which is going to serve 50 people, is going to have access to East High School. So actually, if you look at it on a win situation, if they went to the self-contained facility, they would never been able to hook east onto it, would still have that issue not to be able to address, and not 50 property owners would be accessible to a self-contained system on the side. So it's a win. It's a win for that whole community. So I think we'd ought to pass this. Do I agree with it? Guys, I don't. I don't agree with people coming up here making comments about Innovative Academy. That's not our responsibility. I don't agree with things being put in our lap like this. But I think, like, you know, vote your conscience. But I'm not going to be, myself, sitting here not voting for something that I know if we walk out here tomorrow that may cost us more money and it's going to delay the construction of that school. There's a lot of things I don't like, and I share you're all feeling the same way. So that is my opinion. I think we have to step up and do what's right, even if we feel in our own mind we don't like it. So many things in people's lives, we do things that we don't like, but we do it anyway because it's the right thing to do at the moment. And if anybody goes back in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road, says that, well, y'all put a 4-inch line down and you can't serve the area. Well, we have an explanation to them. The funds wasn't available. We had to do something to get sewer to that school. So y'all vote however you want to, but I just want to tell you my viewpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Commissioner Broughton, you're recognized.
I agree with most of what Mr. Vance said. So maybe I actually have a coordinator here. The problem I have is this, you know, the management of BOE has blamed us for a shortfall. So I'll meet you halfway on this, Mr. Vance, and meet the BOE halfway. Let's approve $275,000, and they take that $750, put it towards that 1.4, then they're only 7 short, only $700K short. If you want to go the full 1 million, then $750K goes, we're only 700 or 800,000 short of that 1.6, they say. Then they can keep the IA and another school open. I make a motion, we amend this to $275,000.
That's I'll recognize the second, Mr. Broughton. Thank you. Second by Abstain. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I don't accept that.
You're recognized.
I don't accept that amendment.
You don't accept that amendment?
No, sir.
And the amendment was, Madam Clerk, to amend it, the number is 200, Mr. Broughton,
275.
275,000. We'll take that because it's easy to get recognized.
Yes.
Any discussion on the amendment? Commissioner Vance, you're recognized.
Well, I'm a little bit confused. So you're going to amend it to 275,000?
Yes.
Where's that 275,000 coming from? Out of the general fund of the county?
No, sir, their own money. They said they had $750 put back for this.
Right.
So really all they should need is $275,000. They don't need the full million. If we give them the full million, then they should have $750 to go towards not closing the IA or another school.
Okay. And Mr. Rafalowski, she may want to respond to this, but they're leaving a contingency in the project of the middle school somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1.2, 1.3 million, because there's some rock that's going to have to be moved that was not. So they're not wanting to empty their contingency out. So we can approve it at 275. They spend the 750. They're going to have to come back in here again and ask for additional money out of the reserves to finish the project. So what they were trying to do is not completely replenish the reserved account, their contingency money for that project. Am I right?
You're exactly right. That reserve was set up specifically for this sewer. We have absorbed that original $750 that was set aside for that wastewater treatment plant.
Where was it absorbed?
It's absorbed in the entire budget for both schools. It was absorbed
It was
throughout the
split
budget.
between the two.
It was absorbed throughout the budget, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. In the list that she gave me, they're leaving 1.23 million in the contingency, okay? So they're only using 275 out of the bond proceeds.
And maybe that's another problem, if we all got the same information. I know that you got information I didn't get. And when I asked the same question, I got a limited amount of information. Maybe if the entire commission got the same information, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Well, Mr. Brown, I went over and sat down and met with them, and that's what I tried to do.
I asked publicly.
Well, I mean, that's between you and them. I'm just saying,
Well-
I wanted to get, before I put my name on the resolution, I've got to study the issue before I put my name on it. So I went over and spent about an hour. And I want to encourage all of you all, if you have a question, pick up the phone, go talk to these elected officials, department heads, and try to get the answers yourself. And I've actually shared this information with other commissioners have asked, okay? So I'm not trying to hide anything from anybody.
Well, I'm not saying you are, but
Okay.
like you just told me, you shared it with other commissioners that asked.
That asked.
Why did they have to ask? Why did the director of schools not give it to every commissioner when they gave it to one? That's the problem. No open communication is the problem.
Let me, I know this is off the subject, let me say this. I did bring that up in that meeting that day, and I asked Evelyn and Ingrid to start doing a monthly report, a financial report,
Thank
maybe a 1 or 2 page, because, and I'm not blaming anybody, but when I first came on the commission, the school department would present us an annual, or a monthly report. And we had a lot more information to look at. And so they are actually working on that. It's not going to be a large document. I don't want the whole document. So they are, that hasn't been addressed at that time, and I think you'll see that forthcoming.
Thank you.
Mr. King, you're recognized.
Well, going back to this same old, I can't understand where the $750,000 went. And Ms. Redlowski, if you'd come forward, I just want to explain to us that $750,000 was set up for a sewer, on-site sewer, and now you moved it somewhere else, this money. So is that going to be a common thing for us for now on, that if we need some money over here, we'll just take it out of this pocket and put it over here? I thought we had a budget. I thought we had, when we do a contract, it's a line item, that there's money in each line item for a certain thing. If you're going to have asphalt, it's a certain number. If you're going to have steel, if you're going to have concrete, these are certain numbers that you've got. And that's where it's supposed to go, is in that building, not somewhere else over here on this other school building we're looking at. So explain to me how you spent the $750,000.
That $750,000 that was in the original budget has been absorbed within the school bond budget for the school. To say that it went specifically to this one thing or this one thing, I can't say that right now. I can tell you what the bid came in as, and that's where we put we did everything we could to make the bid work. And when we saw that what the bid was and where we were on building these 2 schools, that's why we set up the reserve last summer, because we knew we would need the additional monies for sewer.
Okay, so when you did the original, you could have put in there an 8-inch sewer line to Weavers. But you had X number of dollars, and to get something of a sewer line, you said, this is how much money we got. Architect, you draw us up a plan using this amount of money, just so we can barely get to Weavers with our sewer.
Actually, we did not say this is how much money we have and do this. They came back with a design that was suitable for the 2 schools. And then that was bid out. That went out in August. And the bid came back in September. We didn't specify do a 4-inch line or a 6-inch line or an 8-inch line. We said we have to have a sewer because TDEC came back and said we had to. This is what the engineers came back with.
Was there say, if we do a 4-inch line, it's going to be $1 million. If you do a 6-inch line, it's going to be $1.5 million. If it's 8-inch, it's going to be $2 million.
No, sir. I did not ask that question. I didn't ask for a different size of line because what came back to me, the proposal that came back via the engineers through Mattern and Craig and was approved by the engineers in Bristol.
Okay, let's say I'm going out to buy a car. I've got a budget. I can spend $50,000 or I can spend $10,000. So you told the architect to draw us up something, it didn't matter what it cost.
No,
Basically,
I
is
never
what you're
said,
saying.
I never said anything about it doesn't matter what it costs.
Well, we got,
What was requested is what do we have to make this work? Now, if there's an interest in having more, a larger sewer line, that's beyond us. This is what came back as what we needed or we had to have that was sufficient for us to operate.
I think that's where this whole body has got a concern. You was turned down, and instead of coming back to us and saying, you know, it's probably gonna take some more money, or we're gonna have to move money from here to here to get this thing done, nothing was ever said.
No,
To us.
no, sir. Certainly, we never came back and said we need more money. And again, I never knew that that a county city sewer agreement existed until, I could get you the specific date, but it was, probably early November when that came to my attention. I apologized for that at the last meeting, but I don't think I was the only person in the room that didn't know about a city-county sewer agreement either.
Well, we built a trunk line from the hospital in Bristol to the racetrack. And then when the Pinnacle was being built, took the tip money, and Bristol built a trunk line to connect all that. So, you know, it wasn't hidden somewhere. If the architect had knowledge of this, being from Sullivan County, I mean, you would think that the architect would have knowledge of this.
Well, I think Mattern and Craig actually has more experience in that area than anyone, and most likely the architect, but here again, I didn't know it existed.
There again,
so-
she's got to put her stamp on it, and she's got to stand behind it. And then she may go to another engineering firm to get it, but still, she's got to put her stamp on it, and then it comes back to us. And there again, where's our project manager at? You know, who's out here looking over this stuff as these schools are being built?
Our project manager is Charlie Hubbard.
How many schools has he got to cover?
We have 18 campuses.
One man can't do that. You need one person on each two, actually you need one person on each school if you're going to do it. Because all this testing and stuff that has to be done, while this school is being built, one person cannot be at 21 places and trying to take care of this. And there again, the reason I'm asking all this is the taxpayers that voted for me and sent me over here wants me to take care of their tax money that they send here. And if I don't ask questions, if I'm not responsible, then I'm not doing my job for the taxpayers that voted for me. And I'm not trying to be difficult with you, by no means. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But on the other hand, when you start doing things that's not right, and it's going to come back to bite us in down the future, then I've got a problem with it because it's going to come back. Somebody's got to pay for all this stuff. And that's going to be the taxpayers of Sullivan County. And that's who votes and puts us up here. And there again, I agree with Mark. You know, it's not the county that is supposed to run the school system, but there again, it's our tax money and the people that voted for me to come over here to represent them, it's their money that we're spending. And if we're not spending it wisely and doing it correctly, then they've got a problem and I've got a problem. And I yield. Thanks.
Thank you, Dwight. First, Mr. Butler.
Thank you. Mr. Avalosky, I talked to you early in November about the sewer agreement, correct?
Yes.
And I told you what the circumstances were and what we were looking at. Well, a few months ago, when you guys voted on the, I think it's 4.8 million for the ball fields at the high school, and it came about that we had, I think it was 2.8 million set aside for the sewer agreement or for the sewer lines at the middle school.
1.3.
I thought we had 2.4.
Yeah.
Mr. Williams, or Commissioner Williams at that time, was questioning that we had 2.4 in there.
I'm not sure where that came from, but in that reserve, we have 1.3.
So now you got 1.3 in there.
No, we've always had 1.3, sir.
1.3.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, maybe I'm mistaken on the numbers, but I think that's what was, yeah, different count. A few months ago, the Board of Education decided that they did not want to build no road, that they wasn't in the road building business for the high school. And now we're in the sewer business. I call for a vote on this thing. Let's just vote on it.
Mr. Glover, call a question on, item number 4, ladies and gentlemen. That's, we're cutting some people off and,
I just want to ask you for clarification. Are we voting on the amendment, or did we not accept the amendment? The amendment,
the sponsor didn't accept the,
so we're only voting.
good point, Commissioner. The sponsor didn't accept the amendment, and I don't think Mr. Robert wanted to bring it to the vote. That was my interpretation, is that right? So, we have a call for the question, and we're going to cut some, doesn't appear that we'll cut anybody off. We'll be on the question. I'm going to let Mr. Morrell have the final say, and we'll vote. That's it? Thank you. Mr. Morrell renews his motion for adoption, seconded by Commissioner Vance. When the board opens, please cast your vote on the motion to approve item number 4 on today's agenda. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
9 yes, 15 no.
Having failed to receive the necessary majority, item number 4 failed.